Welcome to the Arc of Justice on Brookline Interactive Group's Big TV. I'm Eric Hyett. My guest this week is Kimberley Richardson. Kimberley is a Brookline resident, a mother of 8. She's in her last year of social work school getting her master's in social work at BU, and she somehow finds the time to serve on the task force to reimagine policing in Brookline. Kimberley is here today to share her experiences with the task force and to talk about what it's been like for her to become more engaged with civic issues. Please welcome Kimberley. Hello and welcome. And I'm hoping you could introduce yourself and tell us what first brought you to Brookline. I ask everybody this question.
Okay. So my name is Kimberley Richardson, and I use she, her pronouns. I came to Brookline for the school system. I wanted my boys an opportunity, and my daughters, to have a better opportunity education. So
So you sent your kids to the Brookline schools. You're a Brookline mom.
I am a Brookline mom. Yeah, I've had 5 kids go through the Brookline public school system. Well, 2 are still in it.
Wow, that's fantastic. Thank you. And thanks for coming on the show. I
Thanks for
have been hoping to get you here for a while to talk about civic life in Brookline, but I'd love for our viewers to know a little bit more about you and your background. Can you tell me a little bit about your present day life in terms of work, school, parenting, kind of what you're up to?
I work for the state of Massachusetts in the trial court system. I've been doing that for about 20, 23 years. So I first started my career at the Suffolk County District Attorney's Office as an intern, then was able to get that job, and then later went to the trial court and have been at the Roxbury Court for over 23 years. I am currently a graduate student at BU School of Social Work. I intern at Boston Glass. I'm super excited about that. I'm a mom of 8 kids, my oldest being 32 years old. And I right now have 2 boys that are seniors at Brookline High. That's a little bit about myself.
You sound like a typical Brookline parent in the terms of being like very busy and very overextended.
You're busy,
I
yeah.
am very, yeah, like a very busy parent for sure. Balancing work, school, parenting. You mentioned Boston Glass. Is that a private company?
Well, it's through the JRI, the Justice Resource Institute, and so Boston Glass is one of their organizations that they have tons of organizations under their umbrella. But Boston Glass is they work specifically with LGBTQ youth of color and their allies. And so I'm really loving that work. I appreciate being in that space.
Wow, that's really interesting. Um, what was your path from being a Brookline parent, an active, engaged, like, parent and full-time worker to getting involved with something like the task force to reimagine policing?
I probably, it's funny, I never would have thought myself to be on this task force. And I think how probably got started is, well, I do this thing, telling your story with yourself and Abby. And Abby was really adamant about, like, you should join the school committee. Come on, come on. And I ended up on the bridge, so Brookline for Racial Justice and Equity. I love it. I love the work that they're doing, and we've been really good about trying to make some changes in the not Boston, Brookline Public Schools. And so that probably got me really started and wanting to make real change in Brookline.
So this began, I don't think every viewer knows about Telling Your Story. Telling Your Story is a program funded by the town's Office of Diversity, Inclusion, and Community Relations, and it's a memoir writing group that's co-taught by me and Abby Erdman. And you said that Abby kind of, you met her through Telling Your Story, and then she kind of was your impetus. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's funny because one of the first pieces that I wrote was Brookline is not my home, and I felt really adamant about, like, Brookline is not a place for me. I don't feel at home here. Not necessarily not safe, but just didn't feel connected. And now the work that I'm doing makes me feel more connected to Brookline because I feel like there's a lot of change that needs to be made, and I don't know, maybe little old me will be able to do something somewhere somehow.
And you mentioned one more organization again because it's TV, not everybody knows about it, which is Bridge or Brookline for Racial Justice and Equity. Can you just tell us a tiny bit about
Yeah.
that group?
Um, it's a group of us. We get together. brainstorm on ways that we can help support change for students of color who are not getting what they need in Brookline school system. Um, I noticed even my own children who've been a part of Brookline, I couldn't wait to get to Brookline, right, for my kids to be in the school. But since they've been there, it just hasn't really worked out the way I thought it would. And I just feel like as Black boys, particularly, just don't seem to have a real chance um, at Brookline High. And so this organization just really tries to support all people, like this group of people, and really trying to advocate um, for change in the school system.
It's interesting. You mentioned advocacy a couple times, and like, is that something that's developed out of your experiences as a Brookline mom? Like, is parenting like one of the main reasons that you've grown to want to be an advocate?
Yeah, so I know my twin boys who are 18 and they're about done with Brookline School, right? But there's going to be other brown boys and black boys and girls that's going to come to the school, and I want them to get what my children did not get. And so I feel like I have an obligation to be here and advocate for those parents who may struggle and not know how to really advocate for themselves to get what they need. So yeah, Brookline, I would say the injustice that I feel like my kids got brought this new advocacy for out for me, I think. Yeah.
That's really fascinating, Kimberly. Thank you for your openness about that. Um, So through your writing, you became a member of a racial justice and equity group, and through that, you were moved to apply to join the task force to reimagine policing, which I understand because I applied and was rejected. It had over 99 applicants, this particular task force.
Yeah. It's funny. I originally I was not thinking. So when we got the email about like maybe joining, and I saw it, and I was like, you don't have room for anything else on your plate. Like you just don't have time to do this. And one of my friends reached out to me, and she said to me like, you should do this. Like you totally should do this. And I was like, okay, you know what? Let me just go for it, and we'll see. And I was probably thinking I was going to get picked, and maybe secretly hoping I wasn't. It was like I'm just going to put my name out there, and maybe they won't pick me. And so I was shocked when I got um, picked, and I'm so honored to be on this task force because I really feel like they're really trying to make some real change and not trying to get rid of police or defund police, but just imagining what policing can really look like in Brookline.
What an intense topic and very timely topic right now. I mean, that's something that the whole town is kind of forced to confront and kick around to the point that there's a task force and there's also another another committee. We've already had Raj Dahanda from the other committee to come in and talk. So I'm really excited, but looking forward to having you share a little bit. For those viewers who aren't closely following this issue, what is the task force to reimagine policing?
Um, I think it's, and the way I see it, we have police doing a lot of things in the community that they probably aren't or shouldn't be doing or trained to do. And their job is to make sure they keep us safe and to fight crime, right? And so they don't need to be trying to be social workers or doing things that they shouldn't be doing. And so the task force is just trying to look where the budget, this money for policing goes and make sure that it's used in a way that's effective for the town of Brookline. That's what I see.
Yeah, no, it's your opinion that matters. I mean, the task force's reason for getting constituted is one thing, but you're the first member, and I want to make sure that we're clear. You're here in your capacity as a private citizen, not like speaking on behalf of the task force. I'm
Right.
more interested, and the viewers want to know about your experiences with it. That said, are there any highlights or positive experiences of serving on this task force so far?
I mean, I've learned a lot. Um, and I've connected with some really good people who really, really care about Brookline and about how the people of Brookline should be served. Um, I I don't So I don't agree with a lot of things that I don't agree with everything on the task force, everything that everyone says. But I think Raul, I'm so excited that he created this task force. It's so necessary. And they're doing a lot of good work. A lot of people think that we're anti-police, and that's not what this is about. This is not about getting rid of the police, getting rid of that program, getting rid of that. It's about why the police feel like they should be in certain places, like in the schools or in public housing. Um, so it's just trying to figure out a better way for Brookline police to do their jobs that they were hired to do. I don't know if
That
that
said,
answers your
thank
question.
you. No, it's really good. That's a really very straightforward explanation. Again, I bear in mind the viewers who don't know, they're not nerds like me about town politics. They might not know as much.
And I know nothing of politics. All I know is lived experience, and I sit on these task force and these committees with only my lived experience. Of course, I have some education, right? But and been working in government for a long, but in the criminal justice system, right? But I don't know a lot about politics. But I know right from wrong. I know what feels good. I know what looks good, and a lot what I see in Brookline policing doesn't feel good or look good.
That said, can you tell us what is the walk and talk program? This has been one of the misconceptions in the town that people have misunderstood, and I feel like this is one of the things that maybe is being debated or starting to come up through the work of that task force.
So for those who don't know, they can always go onto the Brookline Police Department website and Google Walk and Talk Committee, and they'll tell you a list of things that they do. But I think so. What I noticed, and from the time that I moved to Brookline, I want to say maybe 8 years ago, is I noticed that the police was always around public housing, specifically the unit that I stay in. And I didn't understand. I was like, why is the police always here? Why is the police always? Then later to learn that they have this thing called Walk and Talk unit, and they feel like, and I'm still trying to understand why they think it's necessary to police or add this extra support to people who live in public housing. Why do we in public housing need extra support? Why not the people who live in Coolidge Corner or South Brookline? I don't know all the towns in Brookline, but why? And that doesn't make sense to me. And that just what it feels like and looks like is they're policing poor people who live in public housing.
This is a perspective. It's very hard for people who don't live in those areas or in those housing units to understand what that might be like. But I mean, are there ways that that police presence is? I mean, you've mentioned that it's kind of unnecessary. It, how, and again, speaking just for yourself, like how does it sort of make you feel? Is I guess what I'm wondering when you see that, because I think for a lot of people it's counterintuitive. It sounds like, oh, the police are trying to get to know people, but something's off about it.
Yeah. So just for myself personally, it
Hmm.
doesn't like I'm not saying that it doesn't benefit other people. Maybe other people really, really love it. I personally don't, and I'm always very transparent, and I'll be transparent here as well. I one of my sons who's he's about 25. He just turned 25, and he would often say to me, if anything happens in Brookline, they come see me, and that made me feel a certain way. Like, do they think that this kid is? I'm not saying he's my son, and I think he's a great kid. Do I think he gets into a little bit of trouble? Of course, it's a kid. And but he shouldn't feel like every time something happens, he's the person that they're going to look at or go to. That doesn't feel good to me, and that's kind of what I feel like when I see the police around here talking or to these young kids or policing them. That's what I feel like they're policing them. We're going to make sure you stay in line and you don't get in trouble. And if we see something happening in the town, we're going to come see if you had any part to do with that. That's how I feel. Now, let me be very clear. There's been a time when I had to reach out, and I didn't reach out to them specifically because they were the walk and talk unit, but because I knew them. And
Hmm.
and so we had this interview with the walk and talk officers, and I wanted them to let them know that I do appreciate that I could call or text you to say, hey, my son, he's been he I don't know where he is right now. He's like hanging out late and he's not coming home on time. and I'm worried about him. So I reach out to those officers. Do I think that's a benefit? Sure, of course. But I should be able to call any Brookline police officer and anybody in town. So say you had kids, you and Teddy, right? You should be able to live in your home and call and say, hey, you shouldn't be policing people in housing, is all I'm saying. You don't
What
have
a
a special
very, like, that's a very powerful perspective, and it's really like for me, that's been like a shift, because a lot of people in town, like you see people are very proud of the Walk and Talk program as an example of so-called reaching out to minority communities. But for me, I'm always a little skeptical of anything that has an outreach tone, because more it's like why aren't we one community to begin with? I know that's
Yeah,
kind of idealistic.
yeah, yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing about that. What about for people who are watching this program and maybe are inspired to, I don't know, have some strong opinions or share them? What do you recommend that people do in Brookline who maybe aren't already engaged with this, but maybe have had some experiences or encounters? How could they speak up or be a part of the healing process?
So I think that they should really go to the website for Brookline's website, and they have um, a link on there for the walk and talk unit, so they can reach out to any of us on the walk and talk unit, tell us what they feel, what their thoughts are. If they love it, we'd love to hear it. If they hate it, we'd love to hear that too. We really want to know what the people's perspective is on the walk and talk unit. But it would be really great if were able to get more residents involved and see. It feels like the residents don't really trust. I don't say I don't. I will say they don't trust us because they don't really know us. They don't know what's going on or what's happening. But I live in housing, and I can say you can trust me. You can come in, you can talk to me, and I'll tell you exact. I'm very transparent. I'll tell you who I am, what I'm doing, what we're doing. I have nothing to hide. But I would love to know what people think about it. And we had an interview with one of the directors, director of property management at EHA, and he's been there since the start of the program. And one of the things he said was that he's offering, it's like this whole support thing for people who live in the housing, people who may be living paycheck to paycheck and have different issues. And I said to him, there's other people in Brookline who rent, who are living paycheck to paycheck, and you're not offering them support. So why are you offering support to people who live in public housing? And again, that feels like you want to keep the people who live in public housing in line, make sure you don't get into trouble, don't make any trouble in Brookline. We allowed you to be here, so stay in your place. That's what that feels like. And that's not
What
fair.
a No, this is very intense stuff, and you on this task force have the job of pulling apart the layers of it. You can't speak in generalities. I hear you being very specific today about experiences, about your own family. Like, I think that the details are really what matter here. Like, we think we can't speak in slogans and get any work done.
Yeah, yeah. I try to really bring my honest opinion to the task force. I say what I feel and what I think. I respect what other people feel and they think. Yeah, I'm just trying to get some real work done, and not trying to take away from anyone's livelihood. I would never, if this affected someone's job in some kind of way, I wouldn't want to do this. I'm just saying that the money that they put into the walk and talk unit can be put someplace else, and it could be more effective for children who they see have an extra need. But the need is not to be policed.
That's a really good point. And I also very much take to heart your point that there's lots and lots of people that live paycheck to paycheck in Brookline or that don't even have a paycheck that are living on super low income but are not living in public housing at all. So, maybe those people need additional law enforcement support too.
Yeah. Or social
um,
service support. That's what it is. This is a we need social service department that has nothing to do with the police that can support the people and what they need. And so they can hire social workers, they can hire me. I'll be graduating soon, and we can support the people the way they need to be and not feel policed, not feel like they're under this microscope and they have to act right. You know what I mean? Like that
I
doesn't feel good.
That's really, really powerful and very clean way to put it about not feeling policed. We want the police to be there, obviously in a crisis. And you yourself said you had your own son. You call it police when appropriate, but to feel policed in our day-to-day life is a different thing. And feeling like people maybe have to be less themselves, that can't be the goal.
Yeah,
It just can't be.
absolutely.
Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about with regard to either the task force or policing in Brookline that you didn't get a chance to mention?
I mean, I just really hope that the people will of Brookline will really all the it's um, public meetings are public and they're recorded. Big records them. They can go onto the website, look and see for themselves what we do, and if they have opinions or thoughts, share them with us because we're really, really trying to make some real change and not trying to harm anybody, especially the police. Because one of the things that I love about living in Brookline is that, and this is probably crazy, I don't sometimes I don't even lock my door. I don't lock my car door. I feel safe. I'm happy to live in Brookline for that safety reason. But also, I don't want to feel policed either.
Really, really subtle difference. So it takes a task force. You guys are still meeting, aren't you? As I understand it, the task force was going to meet until its job is done, which seems like it could be a while.
Yeah, so I know we have some reports. We're getting ready to do some public forums where we're inviting people to come in and talk. I don't have all the dates. They can go on the website and look at that. And we have to have our final report due, I think it's mid-March. But this work is probably going to continue. And I'm hoping I get picked to stay on the task force because this is not going to happen after this. Changes are going to happen right away, even after we draft a report, right? Because people still have to decide if they really want to go with our recommendations. And so this work is gonna continue. It's gonna be a continuous thing until we see real change.
I love this word, reimagine, reimagine policing. It seems to me like to speak to the soul of the matter in a way that, people calling to defund things, that's like a political thing. But reimagine is very personal. It's calling on each of us to use our creativity. So I really expect good things out of this task force, and I'm psyched that you're a member of it and an anchor of it, really kind
I'm
of keeping it
excited.
real.
Yeah, yeah.
Last thing I'll ask, is there anything for our viewers like who may not be actively engaged in town issues? Can you share why it's been worth getting involved? Like people who may be very skeptical coming in. And I know that you mentioned you'd been skeptical at first as well.
Yeah. Again, like I said, when I first moved to Brookline, it was to come here and get my kids in really good school. And I didn't feel at home. I would go to work and come home, go to school and come home. I never ventured out. I didn't care about who lived around me. I'd only frequented certain places because it didn't feel like home to me. And when I started writing with Telling Your Story, and people came to listen to me read, and I met a lot of great people who really wanted to support me in some of the things and issues that I was dealing with. And I realized that Brookline's not that bad of a place to be. If we get a bunch of good people willing to work together to make some real change, it can be a great place to be. And like even recently, being a part of this Brookline coalition, trying to like support um, getting real people who believe like I don't know, like I believe, voted into office. I just, if you're not, like, if you don't think you matter, your voice matters. It does. It doesn't matter what walk of life you're from, if you live in housing, if you're living paycheck to paycheck, if you're working class, if you're poor, it doesn't matter. Your voice matters. So get involved because it matters. And it takes all of us. And I didn't realize how important that was. And so now Brookline is my home and I'm not going anywhere anytime soon.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. You're definitely one of the people I've been most enthusiastic to get to speak with.
Thank you.
And I think I've pretty much covered it in terms of our interview for today. I'm going to stop our
Yeah.
recording.
Wait, one more thing before you
Hang on.
stop.
Oh, please, yeah.
If anyone doesn't know about Telling Your Story, you should really look into it for the next season. It's an awesome program, especially if you love writing, and I love writing. So for those folks who love writing, come check out Abby and Eric.
Oh, thank you for mentioning telling your story. Yeah, we are definitely taking new applicants for the program. We pretty much anyone who lives in BHA housing or any kind of low-income housing in our town who would like to be part of that program is extremely welcome. We
Yeah,
love to help people tell their story. I've admired your writing so much, Kimberly. I know you'll go on to publish it, and people should read and learn from your experiences. So thanks for the plug.
thank you.